It is time for my opening thoughts. And yes, you heard Barry kind of give it away a little bit. It's going to be on Dabo Swinney and also on Brent Key just a little bit as well. And this obsession with Alabama and comparing everything to Alabama and not getting enough credit when you beat Alabama and not having the same opportunities at other schools that you have at Alabama and how people are thin-skinned about it. Let's start with Dabo Swinney, and then we'll get to Brent Key. But I don't know how much more credit Dabo Swinney wants, James. I mean, I don't know. What else do you want? I mean, you were 15-0. I've seen no one say that you didn't deserve to win the game. I've seen no one say that you didn't have a better team and you didn't play better that night and you're one of the greatest teams of all time. I don't know, what else. I guess this is a response. And James, maybe you can find these clips. Maybe they're audio clips. Let's look for them. But in the Greenville News, Scott Kiefer, Clemson beat writer, has a story. So what happened to Alabama in title game? Clemson coach Dabo Swinney has an answer. And I assume this must be in response to Saban just saying the other day at the recruiting signing day press conference that, Alabama lost that game and we played the comments here and, some people had their own agendas and, didn't play well and have to fix some things. And I guess that got under, Dabo, we're a little low, pitiful Clemson. We're just happy to be here. Well, as long as you're saying that, I guess it's funny. If anybody else, I guess, has any other reason for that game being lost other than you were dominant in this great, incredible juggernaut, you take offense to it. So how did Alabama, which entered last month's national championship game against Clemson as a 5.5-point favorite, fall victim to Clemson for the second time in 3 years? Clemson coach Dabo Swinney has an answer, and I'm reading from this article directly in the Greenville News by Scott Kiefer here for my opening thoughts. Nothing happened to Alabama, Swinney said Wednesday. They just played a better team that day. Simple as that. Swinney, whose team dismantled the Crimson Tide 44-16 in the title game in Santa Clara, California, said that he's recently been intrigued by what he's heard in passing on radio and TV broadcast. I'd like to hear what he heard because I've heard nothing but how great Clemson is. Here's his quote. You hear some of the comments and everybody wants to explain what happened to Alabama instead of how about Clemson just had the better team, Swinney said. It was Swinney declared, just Clemson being, well, Clemson. Now he goes on to tell you how great they are. We really didn't do anything different than we've done all year, he said. We won 13 games by 20-plus points, won the state championship by 3 touchdowns, won the ACC championship by a lot, won the Cotton Bowl by 4 touchdowns, and then won by 4 touchdowns in the national championship game. All they did was what they'd done all year. People just really didn't pay attention. Alabama's unbelievable. They're 14-1. They did an amazing job. We just had the better team. That was my message before the game. I told them, y'all got the best team in the country right here, and tonight you got a chance to prove it, and that's what they did. People didn't pay attention. What? People didn't pay attention to the fact that you were 14-0? People didn't pay attention to the fact that you were playing Alabama for the 4th consecutive time in the playoff? 3 out of the 4 years in the national championship game? People didn't pay attention to that? People haven't given you enough credit? In fact, I would say people have been a lot harder on Alabama over this loss than how hard they were on you last year when you were 13-0 and got hammered in the semifinals at the Sugar Bowl by Alabama 24-6 when your offense, it was all it could do to make a first down. I don't think you caught nearly as much grief for that loss as what Alabama's caught for this loss. You, James? I mean, Clemson lost last year 24-6, struggled mightily in the offense. Nobody said anything. Nobody said, there was anything, just dissected Clemson the way they've dissected Alabama. In fact, people said Clemson will be back, and they were. So I just don't get where I just think you can't play both sides of the coin. You can't say we're a little old, poor old, little pitiful Clemson, and we don't deserve to be here, but we're here. Nobody, and then get offended when somebody might say, and I don't know that they did, but somebody might say, well, Alabama played poorly or Alabama just didn't play. And then we're big bad Clemson. We beat everybody by 60 points all year long. If you'd been paying attention, we were the best team in the country. I just, can't play both sides of the coin. And as for Brent Key, who goes out now mouthing off about how it's easier to recruit for Georgia Tech than Alabama and talking about all the advantages that Georgia Tech has over Alabama, get over yourself. Nick Saban helped your career mightily. You were out there at Central Florida, and you got an opportunity here at Alabama in your home state, and it really boosted your career and gave you this chance to go back to your alma mater, Georgia Tech, as offensive line coach. But he was fired up. I'm not going to read you all of his comments, but he just basically says that I went through this place. This place made me what I am today. I know the truth about this place. Somebody asked me, how are you going to recruit at Georgia Tech differently than you were at Alabama? I said, expletive. It's going to be easier. It's going to be so much easier. I've got more to offer. He talked about Tuscaloosa and Atlanta, the comparison, outstanding academics at Georgia Tech, all the technology that they offer. Again, let it go. Just do your job at Georgia Tech. And Key was later asked to explain his thought process in leaving Alabama for Tech. It's home, he said, and I can guarantee you this. When we're done changing the culture under the vision of what Coach Collins wants to do, no one will ever ask that question again. Well, you know what? I think they're going to ask that question again, Key, because I don't think Georgia Tech's going to come anywhere close to accomplishing what Alabama's accomplished. We'll see. All right, that's my opening thought. It's Alabama. When you beat Alabama or when you coach at Alabama and you leave Alabama, either you don't get enough credit for beating them or your coaching situation is better than the one you had at Alabama. Everything seems to be about Alabama, win, lose, or draw. That's what happens when you're the big boy. And maybe Dabo Swinney is still a little paranoid. Maybe he still feels like big bad Clemson doesn't get enough credit compared to Alabama. Well, you know what? You've won 2 of the last 3. Alabama's won 2 of the last 4. Alabama's won 5 and 10. Saban's won 6. You've won 2. You've won 2 of the last 10. So you're still not there. All right, we'll get to the headlines here in just a moment quickly, and I'll give you the lineup. Right now, let's go to the Bud Light Hotline, powered by Adams Beverages, 205-342-9904. And Tom's ready to chime in on Dabo as well. Tom?
Morning, Gary.
Good morning.
Listen, I have had a blast with the Clemson people since the game, and for example, Justin Ross, I think they put a sign up in wherever he's from, Phoenix City, or wherever it is, and they put a sign up, congratulating him, and so he posted it on Twitter, and so I sent him, I DM'd him and said, look, okay, you went and helped Clemson out a little bit, but now it's time to come home and be with the best. And one of the assistant coaches, I guess, saw it or something, or he showed it. Anyway, they started hammering me. Excuse me. And I've had the most fun out of that bunch on Twitter.
They're thin-skinned, man. They are thin-skinned.
No way Justin would ever come there. And I was going, well, if he wants to be with the best, stuff like that on Twitter.
You were just tweaking them, weren't you, Tom?
Oh yeah, I was playing around and having fun. But listen, to your point, when you beat Alabama, you've accomplished something. And we should all be flattered that they're carrying on like they are. I don't know about Brent Key. I don't know who he is. I don't even know what he did at Alabama. But at any rate, I mean, we shouldn't even qualify any comments he makes by responding to them. But the Clemson people, to me, now personally, that's been funny going back and forth with them about Alabama and Clemson. And all, claiming, well, you've got a lot to talk about when you beat Alabama, that sort of thing. And I think Dabo is having fun with it too.
Yeah, maybe so. I Let me say this, Tom. I don't disagree. I don't disagree with anything anybody said about Dabo. I knew him here when he was an assistant coach. I think he's a great guy. I think he's genuine. I do think he's a little more measured than Alabama fans give him credit for. What I mean by that is, I think when he makes these comments in regards to Alabama, he knows exactly what he's doing.
Exactly.
And I do think he is tweaking Alabama to some degree and trying to do it in a way where he comes off as still being lovable Dabo. It's just like this buddy image that he tries to portray with Nick Saban. I don't think they're buddies. This is just my opinion. I don't think he and Nick Saban hang out. I think down there in Florida where they have that vacation property in a similar area, maybe they do go to dinner. Maybe the loser of the game buys the winner dinner. That's a tongue twister. But I don't think they're pals. I don't think Nick Saban's calling up Dabo Swinney every day. But if you listen to Dabo when they get to these games, you would think that they're best buddies. I think he does that. I think he puts Saban in an awkward position so that he's trying to take the edge off of Saban. Because Saban, I think, likes to have a straightforward approach, business approach, and Dabo's trying to play them up as good pals, and I just don't think that's the case. And I think Clemson has done an incredible job, but Dabo Swinney went to Alabama. He grew up in Alabama. He wants to beat Alabama worse than anything. And if he gets a chance to rub it in a little bit, I think he's going to do it, and I think that's what he's been doing. That's just my opinion. Again, I
agree with you, and I don't think it's disrespectful, but I guess some people would take it like that, but I think he's kind of proud of himself. I mean, he knows the culture here, and I think to some degree he knows which buttons.
No, he does. And here's my only thing, like I said, that really gets to me is, on one hand, after the national championship game, shucks, we're just a little Clemson. We're not even supposed to be here. Okay, fine. But then don't come out and say, we're really big, bad Clemson. We blew everybody out. So why is anybody surprised we blew Alabama out? You can't have it both ways. You can't be poor little pitiful Clemson when it suits you, and then big, bad, we blew everybody out all season Clemson. So, I mean, what are you? The bottom line is they're legit. They're a powerhouse, okay? They may not have number one ranked recruiting classes, but they have really good recruiting classes. They're running with the big dogs. They've got all the facilities. They've got all the money. They're putting all of the emphasis in the program, just like Alabama is. They're not shortchanged. They're not poor little pitiful Clemson. In fact, they've got advantages that Alabama doesn't have. You know, the biggest one, they play in the ACC.
Well,
they got an easier.
Danny Ford, when he comes on with Coach Sanderson and Barry, he does the same exact thing. Big old Alabama, little old Clemson. I mean, he does. But I'm going to tell you where Danny Ford learned that is from Coach Bryant. And Coach Bryant was a master at that. And I think some of that's in Dabo, too, but playing that psychology stuff. And but I wanted to say this about Coach Saban. The other day when he said what he did, made that comment that everybody's talking about, that whatever the problem was, he fixed it. You know, he was asked that question. He didn't volunteer that. He was asked a question, and he answered it.
Right.
And it wasn't like, he was coming up, well, let me say, this is the reason we got beat. No, he didn't say that. He was asked a question about something within the program, and he answered it. I won't take up any more time. Really enjoyed the show.
Thank you, Tom. Good to hear from you as always. It's 9:16. This hour being brought to you by the Alabama Credit Union. We got to get to the break. We'll come back with headlines, and I'll set the lineup for you, too, on the other side, because we'll kick it off at 9:30 with Adam Amin. But an interesting lineup today here on the program. The lineup and headlines coming up in the next segment. And let me say this before we go to break, James, as I get my opening thought out of the way. I am very excited for what Dabo Swinney has done. It's remarkable, really. I don't think anybody felt like when he took over for Tommy Bowden there in 2008 that a decade later we'd be talking about Clemson being equal to Alabama as far as the two dominant programs in the country. And it is ironic that Alabama has ascended to a level that we've seen very few teams reach, and their number one challenger is Clemson under former Alabama walk-on player and assistant coach Dabo Swinney. It's great theater. It is great theater. And what he's done is amazing, and he should be proud. I just don't see the need to defend yourself all the time when nobody has taken anything away from you. Everybody understands Clemson's 15-0, Alabama's 14-1. Clemson won that game by 4 touchdowns, not Alabama, and I don't think anybody's tried to slight Clemson at all.
Could Dabo be sending a message to recruits out there?
I think he's always sending a message. I think he's different than Saban in his approach, but I think he's obviously just as successful his way of doing things. And yes, I do think Clemson's here to stay. And yes, I do think they're going to win more championships. As I said, for one reason, look at the league they're in. Look at their path to the national championship as compared to Alabama. Alabama had to play Georgia. They played Pitt in their championship game. But again, so I'm not taking anything away from Clemson. In fact, I'm fired up because I think Clemson has gotten all the credit that they deserve. Nobody's tried to shortchange them anything. And so to come out and say all of a sudden you're being shortchanged, well, you shortchanged yourself because you're the one immediately after the national championship game that said, poor little pitiful Clemson, we don't even deserve to be here. Can't have it both ways. We talked about Dabo's comments in regards to not getting enough credit for winning the national championship game over Alabama. James, you got a clip or two here ready to go?
Listen, I keep the main thing the main thing. I just try to keep my life simple, keep my priorities in order. And it's a little overwhelming this time of year, especially coming off of a moment like that, because there's just it's just a lot to keep up with in the office, and I'm not in the office because I'm literally traveling every day. And so when I do come back, it's just like, whoa, deep breath. But it's just part of it, and I love all of it. But it's all good. It's great. I mean, like I said, it's been an amazing journey. And like I said, after the game, to be able to experience that once is incredible. To be able to experience it twice is an unbelievable blessing. I did a radio show this morning, and I was talking about that. The first one, it was awesome. First time in 35 years, and it was, at that point, it was my 8th year as the head coach, and it was the only thing we hadn't done, was win a national championship. And now to do it again, it was a different type of journey. Such a joy this year. I mean, this group was so much fun to be around, and they enjoyed it. I mean, this team was dominant. Just dominant. It's been interesting, all the, riding around and in the car and listening to the radio and stuff. I mean, it's so fascinating to me to hear some of the comments, it's like everybody wants to explain what happened to Alabama, and instead of, how about Clemson just had the better team? It's really, and we really didn't do anything different than they'd done all year. They won 13 games by 20+. They won their state championship by 3 touchdowns. They won the ACC championship by 4 touchdowns. They won the Cotton Bowl they won the ACC championship by I don't even know how many touchdowns. What was that score? But it was a lot. And then they win by 4 touchdowns in the Cotton Bowl, And then they win by 4 touchdowns in the national championship game. All they did is do what they've done all year. People just didn't really pay attention. And so it's like nothing happened to Alabama. They just played a better team that day. And simple as that. Alabama's unbelievable. They're 14-1. They did an amazing job. Amazing job. We just had the better team. And that was my message before the game is, as I told them earlier, I said, we got the best team in the country right here. And, I've told them that all year. Tonight, you get a chance to prove it. And that's what they did. And they left no doubt, and that was a great moment. It was an unbelievable thing. It was the culmination of that journey. It's over. Man, we're on to 2019. I mean, we've enjoyed it. We've had a great experience, and I'm happy for our fans to be able to be national champions and to take pride in our brand. But, man, it's time for us to get back to work. And I can't wait. So I'm glad that all this. I've enjoyed being on the road, but I'm ready to kind of get back at it. And because that's what we love to do. I mean, it's great. To answer your question, it's just special, and it's motivating to want to go do it again for sure. But the best part is what it takes to get there. That's always the best part. And for me in college football, to be able to start over every year with totally different team and new people and getting a chance to teach, and it's exciting. So I'm ready to go, ready to get back at it, and see how we can do this year.
All right, good stuff, James. Appreciate you pulling that, and you heard it there in its full context. And as I said in the open, he has every right to be proud of what they've accomplished. Again, and listen, I'm looking at it from an Alabama point of view. Obviously, I live and work in Tuscaloosa. I do a sports talk show here in Tuscaloosa. I work for a television station that's owned by the University of Alabama. So if I'm a Clemson fan, I'm yeah, Dabo. Tell him, Dabo. I guess my point, as I said, was I haven't heard anybody not giving Clemson credit, James. So to sit there and say we haven't been given credit, I don't know what else anybody could do. I've heard nobody say that Alabama should have won that game. You know, I've heard nobody say that Clemson didn't outplay Alabama. They did. You're getting credit. You're getting a lot more credit for beating Alabama than Alabama has received when it's beaten Clemson, either in the national championship or last year in the semifinal. So, anyway, to the victor go the spoils, and right now Clemson's the king. And they'll try to do what Alabama couldn't do the last couple of times, and that's repeat the national championship.